Great white sharks are powerful predators that rarely attack humans. However, in this rare and horrifying incident, a 300-pound woman is suddenly attacked by one of these colossal sharks. The great white's strength and ferocity are on full display as it viciously assaults her, creating a heart-stopping moment you must see to believe. Witness this shocking event, and don't miss a second of it. In the summer of 2002, Mary Thompson, an overweight woman in her early 30s, decided to take a much-needed vacation to Gansby, South Africa. Known for its beautiful beaches and vibrant marine life, Gansby seemed the perfect place to relax and try something new. Mary had always feared the ocean but wanted to face her fears. She had heard about the stunning underwater world and decided that this was the time to try snorkeling for the first time. Mary arrived at the beach in perfect weather. The sun shone brightly and the ocean glistened in a stunning blue. Excited and nervous, she donned her snorkeling gear, took a deep breath, and stepped into the water. The calm waves lapped at her feet as she waded deeper and began to float. With her mask and snorkel in place, Mary dipped her face into the water and started swimming. She was mesmerized by the colorful fish and vibrant coral reefs. The underwater world was more beautiful than she had imagined, and for a while she forgot her fears, fully immersed in the ocean's tranquility. However, she soon realized she had drifted farther from the shore than intended. She could barely see the beach when she lifted her head above the water. A sense of unease crept over her, but she kept calm. She knew she had to swim back, but saw a shadow moving in the water as she turned around. Her heart skipped a beat when she recognized the shape. It was a great white shark, drawn by her movements. Mary felt a surge of panic, but knew she had to stay calm. Panicking would only make things worse. She remembered the safety tips she had read before snorkeling. Stay as still as possible, make yourself look big, and avoid sudden movements. Mary floated on her back, trying to keep her breathing steady. She hoped the shark would lose interest and swim away. But the shark kept circling her, getting closer with each pass. Mary needed to think of something fast. She searched for anything she could use to defend herself, but found nothing. As the shark approached, Mary remembered she had a small diving knife strapped to her leg. It was meant for cutting fishing lines, but it was her only weapon now. She slowly reached down, careful not to make sudden movements, and grabbed the knife. She held it tightly, ready to use it if the shark attacked. The shark's dark eyes stared at her as it circled. Mary felt a surge of fear and a strange sense of determination. She wasn't going to give up without a fight. She had come this far, and she was going to survive. The shark made another pass, coming even closer this time. Mary could see its sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight. She knew she had to do something. She raised the knife, ready to defend herself. The shark lunged at her, and she slashed at its nose, the most sensitive part of a shark's body. The shark recoiled, surprised by the sudden pain. Mary took the opportunity to swim towards the shore, her heart pounding. The shark was still there, but it seemed hesitant now. Mary kept the knife ready, watching the shark's every move. She swam quickly, praying she would return to the beach. She could see the shore getting closer, but knew she wasn't safe yet. The shark approached, and Mary prepared to defend herself again. As she swam, Mary thought about her family and friends. She didn't want to give up. She wanted to see them again. This thought gave her strength, and she pushed herself even harder. The shore was within reach, but the shark was still close. Mary knew she had to keep fighting and swimming and never give up. Mary could feel the burning in her muscles as she swam, but she couldn't afford to slow down. The shore was so close now, just a few more strokes. She glanced back and saw the great white shark still circling, though it seemed less aggressive after the encounter with her knife. She pushed forward with every ounce of strength, her breath in ragged gasps. The knife was still clutched tightly in her hand, ready for another attack if necessary. Swimming, she focused on the sandy beach that seemed to inch closer with each stroke. She could make out the figures of people moving along the shore, blissfully unaware of the danger she was in. Just as she felt on the verge of collapse from exhaustion, her feet finally touched the sandy bottom. A wave of relief swept over her as she felt solid ground beneath her. She quickly waded through the shallows, glancing back one last time to see the shark lingering near the edge of the drop-off, seemingly reluctant to approach the shore. Mary stumbled onto the beach, collapsing onto the warm sand. She was breathing hard, her heart pounding like a drum. Nearby beachgoers noticed her distress and hurried over to help. Among them was a lifeguard named Kevin Jones, who quickly assessed the situation and called for medical assistance. Kevin knelt beside Mary, offering her water and speaking calmly and reassuringly. His presence was a comforting anchor in the aftermath of the ordeal. As Mary caught her breath, she looked out at the ocean, where the great white shark had disappeared back into the depths. She felt a mix of relief and pride. She had faced her greatest fear and survived. The experience had shown her a strength within herself that she never knew she had. Later at the local clinic, Mary was checked for injuries. Apart from a few cuts and bruises, she was physically okay. Dr. Emily Roberts commended her for her bravery and quick thinking, noting that not many people would have kept their wits about them in that situation. Word of Mary's encounter spread quickly, and she found herself the center of attention. News reporters came to interview her, and she recounted her story, emphasizing the importance of staying calm and thinking clearly in a crisis. Her story inspired many, showing that ordinary people could find extraordinary courage when faced with danger. Mary stayed in Gansby for a few more days, reflecting on the experience. She took long walks on the beach, appreciating the beauty of the ocean with a newfound respect. She even met with a local marine biologist, Dr. Samuel Patel, who educated her about sharks and their behavior. Understanding these magnificent creatures helped Mary see them in a new light, reducing her fear and replacing it with respect. When she finally returned home, Mary felt different. The experience had changed her. She felt more robust, more confident, and more appreciative of life. She continued sharing her story, hoping it would encourage others to face their fears and discover their inner strength. Mary's encounter with the great white shark became a defining moment. It taught her that fear could be faced and overcome, that strength could be found in the most unexpected places, and that even in the face of danger, there was always hope. Her bravery and resilience left a lasting impact on everyone who heard her story, reminding them that they, too, could find courage in the face of their challenges. In the summer of 2000, seasoned kayaker Daniel Thompson set off on a solo adventure through Norway's Lofoten Islands. The dramatic landscapes and rich marine life made it his dream destination. Launching his bright red kayak from a secluded beach on a calm morning, Daniel paddled steadily, enjoying the peacefulness and stunning cliffs. Each stroke propelled him deeper into the wilderness, filling him with tranquility. Hours later, Daniel spotted dark shapes in the water, a pod of orcas. Fascinated, he slowed his pace to watch as they swam gracefully around him. At first, the orcas seemed curious, approaching Daniel's kayak with interest. He remained still, hoping to observe them up close. The orcas swam around him, occasionally surfacing to breathe, and he marveled at their size and beauty. However, the orcas' behavior soon changed. They began circling his kayak more closely, their movements becoming more coordinated. Daniel's excitement turned to unease. He had heard of orcas displaying aggressive behavior, but never thought he would experience it. The orcas started bumping his kayak, rocking it dangerously. Daniel knew he had to stay calm. Panic would only worsen the situation. He tightened his grip on his paddle and tried to steer away. But the orcas anticipated his every move, blocking his path with precision and speed. Daniel's heart pounded as he realized the danger he was in. The orca's behavior grew more aggressive. One lunged at the kayak, hitting it with enough force to tip it over nearly. Daniel struggled to keep his balance, pushing against the orca's body with his paddle. He knew he had to think quickly and use all his survival skills to escape. He remembered reading that orcas were highly intelligent and could be deterred by loud noises. Daniel reached into his kayak and grabbed a whistle he always carried for emergencies. He blew it as hard as he could, the shrill sound piercing the air. The orcas paused, seemingly startled by the noise, giving Daniel a brief moment to act. He paddled with all his might, aiming for a nearby cove where he hoped the shallower water would deter the orcas from following. The orcas, however, were relentless. They quickly resumed their pursuit, their dorsal fins cutting through the water with alarming speed. Daniel's arms ached from the effort, but he pushed on, driven by adrenaline. The cove was within sight, but the orcas were closing in. Daniel's mind raced as he tried to think of another way to escape. He knew that reaching the safety of the cove was his best chance. but he also needed a plan to keep the orcas at bay long enough to get there. He scanned the water around him, looking for anything that could help. Just then, he spotted a large piece of driftwood floating nearby. It was heavy and solid, something he could use to fend off the orcas if they got too close. He steered his kayak towards it, hoping it would buy him some time. The tension was palpable as the orcas continued their relentless pursuit. Daniel braced himself for the final, desperate push towards safety. Daniel stretched out and grabbed the driftwood, careful not to tip his kayak. He held it firmly in one hand, ready to use it if necessary. The orcas were still close, their sleek bodies slicing through the water with impressive speed. Daniel knew he had only moments to act. As he paddled with one hand using the driftwood to fend off any approaching orcas, he noticed that the cove was getting closer. The water became shallower, and he hoped that this would deter the orcas from following him further. One of the orcas made another lunge at his kayak, but this time Daniel was ready. He swung the driftwood, striking the orca on its snout. The orca recoiled, giving Daniel a precious few seconds to paddle harder. He pushed himself to the limit, his muscles burning from the effort. Every stroke brought him closer to the safety of the cove. The orcas seemed momentarily confused by the shallow water, their movements less aggressive. Daniel took advantage of this brief respite, paddling with renewed determination. Finally, he reached the entrance of the cove. The orcas hesitated at the boundary of the shallower water, their sleek forms gliding back and forth as if debating whether to continue their pursuit. Daniel didn't wait to see what they would decide. He paddled further into the cove, seeking the safety of the rocky shore. Once he was close enough, Daniel jumped out of his kayak, pulling it onto the rocks with all his remaining strength. He collapsed onto the shore, breathing heavily, his heart still racing from the adrenaline. The orcas lingered at the cove's entrance for a few moments before turning away and disappearing back into the deeper waters. Daniel lay on the rocky shore, his body trembling from the ordeal. He had survived the encounter, but the experience had shaken him deeply. He looked out at the ocean, now calm and peaceful, and marveled at how quickly things had changed. The beauty of the sea was undeniable, but so was its danger. Daniel thought about what he had learned as he sat there catching his breath. The encounter with the orcas had tested his survival skills and his ability to remain calm under pressure. He had faced one of the most intelligent and formidable predators in the ocean and had come out alive. The experience made him realize the importance of respecting nature and understanding its power. After resting for a while, Daniel knew he had to find a way back to civilization. The cove was remote and he could not know if anyone was nearby. He gathered his strength and began to assess his situation. His kayak was intact, though it had taken a few hits from the orcas. He checked his supplies and found that everything essential was still there. Daniel decided to wait until the following day to set off again. The daylight was fading, and he didn't want to risk another encounter in the dark. He made a small camp on the shore, using the driftwood for a fire to keep himself warm. The night was long and filled with the sounds of the ocean, but Daniel felt a sense of calm, knowing he had made it through the worst. Daniel set off early the next day, cautiously paddling out of the cove and into the open water. He kept close to the shore, ready to find shelter if needed. The journey back was tense, but the orcas did not return. Daniel reached a small fishing village by late afternoon, exhausted but grateful. The villagers welcomed him warmly, offering food and a place to rest. Daniel shared his story, and the villagers listened in awe. His encounter with the orcas became a tale of bravery and survival that would be told for years to come. Daniel returned home with a newfound respect for the sea and its inhabitants. The experience had changed him, making him more aware of the delicate balance between humans and nature. He continued his kayaking adventures with a deeper understanding and appreciation for the wild places he explored. The memory of that day in the Lofoten Islands stayed with him, a reminder of his resilience and the strength he found within himself. In the spring of 2001, Sarah Mitchell, an ambitious journalist in her late 20s, joined a commercial fishing crew in the Gulf of Mexico. Fascinated by the sea, she aimed to write an in-depth story about the dangers and challenges of life on the open ocean. Boarding the sturdy Sea Warrior, helmed by seasoned Captain Tom Harris, Sarah felt excitement and trepidation. Captain Harris, a grizzled veteran, led a crew that included first mate Jack Roberts and deckhands Luis Martinez and Ben Collins. Used to rough conditions, they welcomed Sarah with curiosity. As the boat headed into the Gulf, Sarah felt a thrill of anticipation. She spent the first day getting to know the crew and learning their routines, quickly realizing the job's physical demands. The men were friendly but focused, preparing their gear and setting up lines for a long day of fishing. The next day, before dawn, the crew began work. The sea was calm and the weather was clear. Sarah joined them on deck, eager to document their catch. The men worked efficiently, hauling in fish with practiced precision, while Sarah took notes and snapped photos, capturing the intensity of their labor. As the sun climbed higher, the mood on the boat shifted. One of the lines went taut and the reel spun wildly. The crew sprang into action, each man knowing exactly what to do. As they struggled with the line, Sarah watched in awe, muscles straining against the powerful pull. After what felt like an eternity, a massive swordfish broke the surface, its long, sharp bill glinting in the sunlight. The crew cheered, but their excitement quickly turned to concern as the swordfish thrashed violently, spraying water over the deck and rocking the boat dangerously. Captain Harris barked orders as the crew fought to control the situation. The swordfish's thrashing intensified, its sharp bill striking the boat with alarming force. Sarah saw the men's worry as they tried to avoid the deadly strikes. The ship creaked under the assault, highlighting their precarious situation. The fish's attacks continued, and the crew struggled to keep their balance on the slippery deck. Luis grabbed a harpoon, ready to defend. Jack and Ben worked to secure the line, but the swordfish's thrashing made it nearly impossible. Heart-pounding, Sarah documented the chaos while trying to stay out of the way. Suddenly, the swordfish lunged again, its bill piercing the hull. Water gushed into the ship, and Captain Harris's face turned grim. The crew sprang into action, trying to plug the hole with rags and gear, but the water kept pouring in. Desperation grew as the swordfish continued thrashing, posing a deadly threat. Sarah knew she had to help. She grabbed a bucket and joined the crew in bailing out the water. Despite their efforts, worry remained etched on their faces. Captain Harris knew they had to act fast. He barked orders, directing the crew to secure the swordfish and stop the water. The tension was palpable as the men worked together, their survival instincts kicking in. Sarah could see the determination in their eyes, and she felt a surge of respect for these men who braved the sea's dangers daily. The crew fought to regain control as the boat continued to take on water. The swordfish's relentless attacks had turned their routine fishing trip into a battle for survival. Sarah's story was unfolding in ways she had never imagined, and she knew that the outcome of this day would be etched in her memory forever. The crew's determination was palpable as they fought against the swordfish's relentless assault. Seeing the severity of the situation, Captain Harris quickly instructed Jack and Luis to get the swordfish under control while Ben continued bailing. He told Sarah to stay back and keep safe. Jack and Luis, armed with harpoons and ropes, approached the thrashing fish cautiously. They had to time their movements perfectly to avoid its deadly bill. With a swift and coordinated effort, they managed to harpoon the swordfish and secure it, reducing its thrashing. The immediate threat was contained, but the boat was still taking on water. Ben and Sarah worked tirelessly to bail out the water, their hands moving frantically. Despite the dire situation, the crew remained focused and calm, with years of experience guiding their actions. Captain Harris directed them with precision, ensuring everyone knew their role. The breach in the hull was still a significant concern. Captain Harris grabbed a toolkit and started working on a temporary patch. With the help of Jack and Luis, they managed to slow the influx of water. It wasn't a permanent fix, but it bought them precious time. After what felt like an eternity, the water flow lessened, and the boat began to stabilize. Exhausted but relieved, the crew paused to catch their breath. Now subdued and secured, the swordfish lay on the deck, its size a testament to the battle they had just endured. Sarah looked around at the crew's weary but victorious faces. She felt a deep respect for their bravery and resilience. She knew her story would not just be about the dangers of deep-sea fishing, but also about the incredible spirit of those who lived it. The sea warrior, damaged but afloat, turned back towards the shore. Now bonded by their harrowing experience, the crew worked together to ensure a safe return. As the coastline came into view, Sarah knew she had witnessed something extraordinary, and her story would honor the courage and tenacity of these men who braved the sea every day. In early winter 2007, a dedicated documentary filmmaker, Alex Turner, traveled to Wrangel Island, Russia, to film seals during mating season. Despite the harsh, icy landscape, Alex was undeterred. Alex set out from base camp on a crisp morning with high-end camera gear and survival equipment. He trekked across the snowy terrain to the seal colony, watching in awe as seals lounged and engaged in territorial displays. Alex began filming, moving carefully to avoid disturbing the animals. His camera captured intricate behaviors, from playful interactions to fierce battles for dominance. Absorbed in his work, he edged closer for the perfect shot. Suddenly, the dominant male seal noticed Alex. It loudly bellowed, and Alex realized he had ventured too close. As he tried to back away, the seal charged, its massive body moving with surprising speed across the ice. Alex's heart pounded as he tried to defend himself with his camera equipment, using his tripod as a barrier. The seal lunged, its mighty jaws snapping inches from his leg. Alex stumbled backward, falling onto the ice as the seal's aggression intensified. Desperate, Alex grabbed his survival knife and managed to fend off the seal with a few blows, enough to deter it momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, he scrambled to his feet and retreated, his leg throbbing with pain where the seal had grazed him. As he limped away, Alex knew he had to return to base camp quickly. The extreme cold had taken its toll, and his injury had made movement difficult. He glanced back to see the seal watching him, its territory defended. Determined, Alex pushed forward, his breath visible in the frigid air. Each step was a struggle, but he couldn't stop. The Arctic landscape, beautiful yet unforgiving, stretched out before him. Injured and miles from safety, Alex was relentless in his fight for survival. The landscape around Alex was a vast expanse of white, broken only by occasional rocky outcrops. The sky turned overcast and a biting wind picked up, making his progress even more difficult. He knew he had to stay alert to avoid getting lost or stumbling into another dangerous situation. As he trekked through the snow, Alex remained vigilant for any movement, the memory of the aggressive seal fresh in his mind. He paused occasionally to listen, the howling wind and his labored breathing the only sounds. After hours, Alex spotted a familiar landmark, a large boulder he had passed earlier. Relief washed over him as he realized he was on the right path. Despite the growing numbness in his limbs and the throbbing pain in his leg, he pushed forward with renewed determination. Suddenly, the weather turned worse. Snow began to fall, quickly becoming a blinding blizzard. Visibility dropped to almost nothing, and Alex struggled to keep his bearings. Getting lost in these conditions could be fatal. He used his camera gear to shield his face from the stinging snow and pressed on, each step a battle against the wind. The blizzard seemed to last forever, but finally it began to ease. Alex could barely feel his fingers and toes, and he knew he was at risk of hypothermia. Summoning the last of his strength, he continued his trek. Eventually, through the haze of snow, he saw the faint outline of his base camp. With a final burst of energy, Alex reached the camp and stumbled into his tent. He immediately began warming himself, using his survival gear to heat water and prepare a hot drink. The warmth began to seep back into his body, and he felt a deep sense of relief. He had made it back alive. Once he was stable, Alex treated his leg injury as best he could. The wound was painful but not life-threatening, and he knew he would recover. As he rested in the safety of his tent, he reflected on the day's events. The experience had been harrowing but also reinforced his respect for the wild and its creatures. Alex knew his footage of the seal colony would be incredible. Still, the story of his survival would add a robust layer to his documentary. He had faced the raw, unforgiving nature of the Arctic and come out stronger for it. With a renewed sense of purpose, he vowed to share the beauty and danger of this remote world with others, hoping to inspire respect and awe for the incredible wildlife that calls it home. In early summer 2005, renowned wildlife photographer Mark Davis embarked on an expedition to Queensland's Daintree rainforest. His mission was to capture images of the elusive saltwater crocodile, a predator known for its stealth and power. Mark had spent years photographing dangerous wildlife, but documenting a saltwater crocodile up close was a long-held goal. The Daintree rainforest, with its dense mangroves and winding waterways, was the perfect habitat for these ancient reptiles. Early one morning, Mark set out, camera gear packed and ready. The humid air was thick with forest sounds as he navigated the mangroves, careful not to disturb the wildlife. After hours of searching, Mark spotted a giant saltwater crocodile basking on a muddy bank. He positioned himself safely and began taking photos, capturing the intricate details of its rough, scaly skin. The motionless crocodile blended seamlessly with its surroundings, and Mark felt a thrill. These were some of his best shots. While working, Mark noticed something unusual in the underbrush. Curiosity led him closer, where he discovered a nest of crocodile eggs hidden among the foliage. Realizing he had stumbled upon a breeding site, Mark knew he needed to be extremely cautious, as the mother crocodile would fiercely protect her nest. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl broke the silence. Mark turned to see the massive mother crocodile emerging from the water, her eyes fixed on him with deadly intent. She had detected his presence and was now fully aware of the threat to her nest. Mark's heart raced as he backed away slowly, trying not to provoke her further. But it was too late. The enraged crocodile lunged at Mark, her powerful jaws snapping shut with a bone-chilling crunch. He turned and ran, slipping on the muddy ground. The dense mangroves offered little refuge, their twisted roots and thick foliage making navigation difficult. He could hear the crocodile crashing through the underbrush behind him. Mark's mind raced as he tried to remember everything he knew about evading predators. He spotted a fallen tree ahead and scrambled over it, hoping it would slow her down. The crocodile, however, quickly maneuvered around the tree, closing the distance. Desperate, Mark veered off the main path, plunging into a thicket of mangrove roots and dense vegetation. The branches scratched at his arms and face, but he pushed through, hoping to lose the crocodile in the forest's maze. The sounds of pursuit grew fainter, and Mark dared to glance back. The crocodile struggled with the tangled roots, giving him a slight lead. He took a moment to catch his breath and plan his next move. He needed higher ground. Mark scanned the area and spotted a large tree with low-hanging branches. If he could climb it, he might be safe. With renewed determination, Mark made his way toward the tree, every step calculated to avoid making noise. The adrenaline coursing through his veins kept him moving despite the exhaustion. As he reached the base of the tree, he heard the crocodile's growl again, closer this time. Mark knew he had to act quickly. He grabbed the lowest branch and hoisted himself up, climbing higher until he was out of reach. Perched in the tree, Mark watched as the mother crocodile circled below, her eyes scanning the ground for any sign of him. The branches provided a precarious refuge, but it was enough to keep him safe for the moment. His heart pounded, and he took deep breaths to steady himself. Mark could see the dense mangrove forest stretching out in all directions from his vantage point. He knew he couldn't stay in the tree forever. Eventually, the crocodile would tire and leave, but he needed a plan to return to his camp without re-encountering her. He scanned his surroundings, searching for a safe route. He spotted a series of higher ground patches that could lead him to safety. He might avoid the crocodile's territory if he could jump from one elevated spot to another. The challenge was getting down from the tree without attracting her attention again. After what felt like an eternity, the crocodile began to move away, her interest in Mark waning. She disappeared into the murky water, and Mark knew this was his chance. He carefully climbed down the tree, staying quiet. Once on the ground, he moved quickly but cautiously toward the first patch of higher ground. Each step was deliberate, avoiding any sounds that might draw the crocodile back. He crossed the first patch of higher ground and leaped to the next, his body tense with the effort to remain silent. The dense foliage helped to conceal his movements, and he made steady progress. Mark couldn't shake the feeling of being watched as he navigated the mangroves. Every rustle seemed amplified in his heightened state of alertness. He kept his senses sharp, listening for any signs of danger. The journey back to his camp was a test of endurance and nerves. After what felt like hours, Mark finally saw the familiar outline of his camp in the distance. Relief washed over him, but he didn't let his guard down. He continued his careful approach, scanning the area for any sign of the crocodile. When he reached his camp, he quickly secured the perimeter and collapsed inside his tent, exhausted but safe. Mark tended to the scratches and bruises he had acquired during his escape in the safety of his tent. As the adrenaline wore off, the reality of the danger he had faced began to sink in. He reflected on the raw power of nature and the fine line between predator and prey. The encounter was a stark reminder of the respect these creatures commanded and the risks involved in their pursuit. Despite the harrowing experience, Mark felt a sense of accomplishment. He had survived and captured incredible footage of the saltwater crocodile. He knew the story would captivate audiences and raise awareness about the delicate balance of life in the wild. Mark spent the next few days reviewing his footage and planning his journey back to civilization. The images he captured were some of the best of his career, showcasing the raw, untamed nature of the Australian outback. As he packed his gear, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The encounter had tested his skills and resilience, deepening his appreciation for the wild and its inhabitants. Leaving the Daintree rainforest, Mark knew he would carry the memory of the mother crocodile forever. It was a powerful reminder of nature's unpredictability and the thin line between life and death in the wild. He vowed to continue his work, capturing the beauty and danger of the natural world and sharing it with those who might never experience it firsthand. In the summer of 2001, a marine research team led by Dr. Jason Miller set out to study the vibrant coral reefs of Ningaloo Reef, Western Australia. Among the team was Rachel Evans, a skilled diver and marine biologist passionate about aquatic life. Eager to document the reef's health and diverse species, the team descended into the crystal-clear waters on a sunny morning. The underwater world was a kaleidoscope of colors, with schools of fish darting through the corals and various marine creatures going about their day. As they moved deeper into the reef, Rachel and her colleagues marveled at the beauty surrounding them. After about an hour of careful observation, Rachel noticed a movement out of the corner of her eye. Turning, she saw a rare and deadly sea snake, its black and yellow bands unmistakable. Rachel signaled to the others, alerting them to the snake's presence. The team watched in awe but kept a respectful distance. However, as Rachel adjusted her position, she inadvertently brushed against a rock, startling the snake. In an instant, it turned and struck, sinking its fangs into her arm. Rachel felt a sharp pain and immediately signaled for help. Her colleagues, Dr. Jason Miller and fellow researcher Sarah, quickly swam to her side. They knew a sea snake bite could lead to paralysis and death if not treated promptly, and the urgency of the situation was apparent. Jason checked Rachel's arm and saw the puncture marks. He administered first aid underwater while Sarah called for an emergency ascent. The team began their careful but urgent journey back to the surface, navigating through the maze of coral formations. The agitated sea snake slithered away into the depths, but its threat lingered in their minds. As they ascended, Rachel's condition deteriorated. Her limbs grew heavy, and her breathing became labored as the venom took effect. They needed to get her to the boat where the anti-venom was stored. The once beautiful underwater environment now felt like a dangerous trap. The team communicated through hand signals, moving swiftly but without panic. The ascent was slow to avoid decompression sickness, but every second counted. Sarah kept a close eye on Rachel, providing reassurance and support. Jason led the way, strategizing to keep Rachel stable until they reached the surface. Despite the urgency, the team had to be cautious. The presence of one sea snake meant there could be more nearby, attracted by the commotion. They scanned their surroundings, alert for any sign of danger. The water felt colder, and the shadows seemed to close in as they made their way through the labyrinthine reef. Rachel's vision blurred, and she struggled to stay conscious. Though masked by their diving gear, her teammates' faces showed determination and concern. She knew they were doing everything they could to save her, but the venom's grip was tightening. The boat was still a distance away, and the clock was ticking. As they neared the surface, the bright sunlight filtered through the water, giving them a glimmer of hope. The boat was within sight, and the team prepared for the final push. They knew the real challenge was getting Rachel out of the water, administering the anti-venom, and ensuring she survived the ordeal. The race against time and nature's most vicious threat was far from over. With the boat in sight, the team intensified their efforts to get Rachel safely. Dr. Jason Miller surfaced first, quickly signaling for the crew on the ship to prepare for an emergency. Sarah and another team member, Tom, helped Rachel as they broke through the surface. The team worked in unison, carefully lifting Rachel onto the boat while keeping her as still as possible. The boat's crew sprang into action, retrieving the anti-venom kit and laying Rachel on a flat surface. Jason administered the anti-venom with practiced precision, knowing that every second counted. Sarah monitored Rachel's breathing and pulse, her face etched with worry. Rachel's condition was critical. The venom had begun to paralyze her, and she struggled to stay conscious. The anti-venom would take time, and they needed to keep her stable. The boat's engines roared to life as they sped towards the nearest medical facility, a race against time unfolding on the open water. The team closely watched Rachel, speaking to her softly and reassuringly. Jason checked the wound and applied a pressure bandage to slow the spread of the venom. The minutes felt like hours as they raced across the waves, the boat slicing through the water with urgent speed. Rachel's breathing was shallow and her skin was pale. Jason and Sarah took turns monitoring her vital signs, ready to administer further aid if necessary. The boat crew relayed their situation to the medical facility, ensuring a team would be prepared to take over as soon as they arrived. As they neared the shore, Rachel's condition began to stabilize slightly. The anti-venom was starting to take effect, though she remained weak and disoriented. The team kept her calm, emphasizing that they were almost there and she would be all right. The boat docked, and medical personnel rushed to meet them. Rachel was carefully transferred to a stretcher and whisked away to the waiting ambulance. Jason, Sarah, and the rest of the team followed closely, their hearts heavy with concern, but hopeful that they had acted in time. At the hospital, Rachel received immediate medical attention. The doctors worked to counteract the effects of the venom and monitor her recovery. The team waited anxiously, their thoughts filled with the day's events. The underwater labyrinth, the deadly sea snake, and the desperate race to save their friend repeatedly played in their minds. Hours passed, and finally, a doctor emerged with an update. Rachel was stable and responding well to treatment. The relief among the team was palpable. They had faced one of nature's most vicious threats and had managed to save Rachel's life. The experience had tested their skills and resolve, but they had risen to the challenge. Rachel's recovery was slow but steady. She remained in the hospital for several days under the watchful eyes of her teammates and medical staff. As she regained her strength, she reflected on the close call and the bravery of her friends. The bond between the team had deepened, forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. More cautious but undeterred, the research team eventually returned to the Ningaloo Reef. Their respect for the ocean and its inhabitants had only grown stronger. Now fully recovered, Rachel continued her work with renewed purpose. She knew the risks but also understood their mission's importance. The encounter with the sea snake became a story they shared with future researchers, a reminder of the unpredictable power of nature and the importance of preparation and teamwork. It was a testament to their dedication and resilience, a chapter in their lives that underscored the thin line between predator and prey and the enduring spirit of those who dared to explore the wild.